A couple of more incidents that occurred in the life of Elisha. 2 Kings chapter 6. The company of the prophets said to Elisha, "Look, the place where we meet with you is too small for us. Let us go to the Jordan, where each of us can get a pole, and let us build a place there for us to live." And he said, "Go." Then one of them said, "Won't you please come with your servants?" "I will," Elisha replied, and he went with him. So he was just living with these people. He was out and about with the prophets. Elijah never really did that, but Elisha does. They went to the Jordan and began to cut down trees. As one of them was cutting down a tree, the iron axe head, which he was using to cut the trees down, fell into the water. "Oh, my Lord," he cried out, "that was borrowed." It wasn't his own. He has now lost someone else's property. The man of God asked, "Where did it fall?" When he showed him the place, Elisha cut a stick and threw it there. I'm not sure if he's making a new axe handle or not, or just a random stick, I don't know. And made the iron float. "Left it out," he said. Then the man reached out his hand and took it. This isn't much of an example of a miracle, but it does show you that Elisha, and the man of God, acting as God's representative, was concerned about these people's just random day-to-day dealings. It doesn't have to be something like as miraculous as bringing a kid back from the dead or cleansing a Gentile of leprosy. It can be something as simple as retrieving a lost axe head from the river where it fell. Now the king of Aram, now here's a more important story. Here's a more significant major story here. Now the king of Aram, again unidentified, don't know which king this is. This has probably been Hadad. But this whole section here is written out of chronological sequence, so it could be Hazael, which is going to be the guy who replaces Ben-Hadad, but this has probably been Hadad, although we can't say for certain. Now the king of Aram was at war with Israel. After conferring with his officers, he said, "I will set up my camp in such and such a place." The man of God sent word to the king of Israel, "Beware of passing that place, because the Arameans are going down there. They're going to set up an ambush." So the king of Israel checked on it. Again, we don't know which king exactly this is, because the kings are not named in these passages, and these stories are out of order, so we don't know exactly which kings these are. So the king of Israel checked on the place indicated by the man of God. Time and again, Elisha warned the kings that he was on his guard in such places. This enraged the king of Aram. All of his attempts to ambush the king of Israel are not working. He summoned his officers and demanded of them, "Will you not tell me which of us is on the side of the king of Israel?" "None of us, my lord the king," said one of his officers. But Elisha the prophet, who is in Israel, tells the king of Israel the very words you speak in your bedroom. That's the most private place of the house, was the bedroom. So if Elisha knows what the king of Aram is saying in his bedroom, he knows everything the king of Aram is saying. He's getting this insight from God. We'll see Ezekiel, in the days of Ezekiel, we'll see him get something like this too, and God gives him up-to-date reports of what's happening in Jerusalem, even though he's in Babylon. So somehow or another, Elisha was getting up-to-date reports of what the king of Aram was planning on doing from God. "Go find out where he is," the king ordered, "so I can send men and capture him." So his attention now is going to turn from attacking the king of Israel, who apparently he was trying to ambush, to getting Elisha the prophet, the man of God. The report came back, he is in Dothan. So apparently Elisha's whereabouts were not hidden like Elijah's were for so long. He was apparently out and about with the people and didn't go into hiding like Elijah did for much of his ministry. Then he sent horses and chariots and a strong force there. They went by night and surrounded the city. When the servant of the man of God got up and went out, I don't know if this is Gehazi or somebody else. Gehazi would have ceased being his servant at the end of the story with Naaman. It could be after that, and it could be a different servant, or it could be Gehazi and take place before that. We'll see Gehazi mentioned again later on. So, in a story that probably takes place before the story with Naaman, so I don't know. When the servant of the man of God got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. "Oh, my Lord, what shall we do?" the servant asked. "Don't be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And Elisha prayed, "O Lord, open his eyes so that he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. They were always there. Elisha apparently could see them, or at least he knew they were there. Normally people can't see them, but they're always there. Elisha, the servant, isn't seeing something that wasn't there before. He's just not able to see it, whereas he wasn't able to before. As the enemy came down toward him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, "Strike these people with blindness." So he struck them with blindness, as Elisha had asked. Elisha told them, so this army of chariots and fire are not actually going to fight these Arameans. They're just going to be there. Elisha told them, "This is not the road, and this is not the city. Follow me, and I will lead you to the man you are looking for." And he led them to Samaria. After they entered the city, Elisha said, "Lord, open the eyes of these men so they can see." The Lord opened their eyes, and they looked, and there they were inside Samaria. That's their enemy's capital. What's going to happen to them now, huh? When the king of Israel saw them, he asked Elisha, "Shall I kill them, my father? Shall I kill them?" He's calling Elisha his father. I don't know which king of Israel this is, but whichever king this is, he did not apparently have as hostile a relationship with Elisha as Ahab had with Elijah. This king does not seem to be, he seems to be he's not listening to Elisha. Okay, none of these kings ever really go as far as they need to in repenting. None of them ever do. So he's not really listening to him per se, but he is tolerating him, and he is finding him useful in certain instances. "Shall I kill them, my father? Shall I kill them?" "Do not kill them," he answered. "Would you kill men you have captured with your own sword or bow? Set food and water before them so they may eat and drink and then go back to their master." So he prepared a great feast for them, and after they had finished eating and drinking, he sent them away, and they returned to their master. So the bands from Aram stopped raiding Israel's territory. For now. But as we'll find out in just a moment, it's not going to stay that way. Sometime later, Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, mobilized his entire army. So apparently this is Ben-Hadad. And I guess that was the king in the previous chapter too, because this is taking place later, it says. Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, mobilized his entire army and marched up and laid siege to Samaria. There was a great famine in the city. The siege lasted so long that a donkey's head sold for 80 shekels of silver, and a quarter of cab of seed pods for 5 shekels. This is unpleasant food. Who wants to eat a donkey's head? Okay, they were so desperate for food, they would buy a donkey's head for a large amount of money. As the king of Israel was passing by on the wall, a woman cried to him, "Help me, my lord the king." The king replied, "If the Lord does not help you, where can I get help for you? From the threshing floor? From the winepress?" So he doesn't know what to do. He can't do anything. This guy just cannot do anything. If God's not going to help us, what can I do? He can turn to God for one thing, but he's not going to do that. Then he asked her, "What's the matter?" She answered, "This woman said to me, 'Give up your son so we may eat him today, and tomorrow will be eat my son.' So we cooked my son and ate him. The next day I said to her, 'Give up your son so we may eat him,' but she has hidden him." Now this is actually an interest. This is a callback to the dilemma that Solomon was faced with at the beginning of his reign. back at the beginning of 1 Kings, when he is established as king and gets the wisdom from God he asks for. And you have the two women who come to him, fighting over one. They each had a child. One of them rolled over a night and lay on top of her child and suffocated him, and he died. Then she swapped him out for the other woman's child. So when the other woman woke up in the morning, her son was dead, and the other son was still alive. And then they realized, the woman whose son was stolen from her, realized it was not her son. So she goes to the king and has him decide between them. Both women actually are brought there to decide who the son is, and the king gets them to reveal whose son it actually is by threatening to cut the son in half and give him to both. And then the woman whose son it actually is has compassion on her son and tells him, "You can let her have him." 1 Kings chapter 3, starting in verse 24. The king said, "Bring me a sword." So they brought a sword for the king. He then gave an order: "Cut the living child in two, and give half to one and half to the other." The woman whose son was alive was filled with compassion for her son, and said to the king, "Please, my lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him." But the other said, "Neither you nor I shall have him. Cut him in two." Then the king gave this ruling: "Give the living baby to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is his mother." When all Israel heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe, because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice. This king, isn't going to have such a solution in mind. He's not going to be able to do what Solomon did back then. When the king heard the woman's words, he tore his robes. As he went along the wall, the people looked, and there, underneath, he had sackcloth on his body. So at least he can't do anything, and he has no solution whatsoever. But at the very least, he is feeling genuine anger and remorse at what's happening. This story has moved him enough that he is showing genuine grief over how desperate things have gotten in their city. But he doesn't have a solution. He can't actually do anything. Now, this is one of the things that God said would happen if their refusal to follow him and their determination to continue sinning got too bad. Way back when Moses was making the covenant with them in the first place, he gave these provisions for blessing and the obedience and cursing for disobedience. Actually, a couple different times. And here at the end of Leviticus 26, he gives some rewards for obedience and punishment for disobedience. And as the punishment for disobedience goes on, it's happening, and the punishments get worse and worse as they get more and more steadfast in their refusal to repent and the determination to continue disobeying. I'll just start randomly. This is Leviticus 26. Let's just start in verse 23. He's already given a lot of different things he's going to do if they continue remaining hostile to him. And he says, if in spite of these things, you do not accept my correction, but continue to be hostile towards me, I myself will be hostile towards you, and will afflict you for your sins 7 times over. And I will bring the sword upon you to avenge the breaking of the covenant. When you withdraw into your cities, I will send a plague among you, and you will be given into enemy hands. When I cut off your supply of bread, 10 women will be able to break your bread in one oven, and they will dole out the bread by weight. You will eat but not be satisfied. We're seeing that happen here already. If in spite of this you still do not listen to me, but continue to be hostile toward me, then in my anger I will be hostile toward you, and I will punish you for your sins 7 times over. You will eat the flesh of your sons and the flesh of your daughters. I will destroy your high places, cut down your incense altars, and pile your dead bodies on the lifeless forms of your idols, and I will abhor you. So he goes on and on and on. So he is doing that. He is fulfilling that promise to make that refers to siege warfare. Okay, when you surround a city, the goal is to cut it off from food and water and access to other places and health and things like that. So that's referring to siege warfare, and that is happening here, okay? This account here is not meant to be something that isn't that is hard to believe. Like, this is an account of siege warfare. When the situation gets desperate enough that you have no food, this is what you have to do to survive. And the king has no solution to this problem. This woman is begging him for some sort of solution. I presume she wants him to go get that other woman's son so they can cook him and eat him. But he doesn't even do that. He can't even do that. He's that ineffective. So when the king heard the woman's words, he tore his robes. As he went around the wall, the people looked, and there underneath he had sackcloth on his body. And he said, May God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if the head of Elisha, son of Shaphat, remains on his shoulders today. So he's finally had enough of Elisha. He's tolerated Elisha up until now. But Elisha could do something about this, and he's not doing anything about it, so he's got to go. His head has got to be removed from his shoulders. Now Elisha was sitting in the house, his house. So he's there in the city. He's not somewhere else. He's not in Dothan. He's not in Bethel. He's not in Gilgal. He's not in some mountain somewhere. He's not hiding. He's there in the city with them. Elisha was sitting in his house, and the elders were sitting with him. So they're there too. They know exactly where he is. He is not MIA. He is not AWOL. He is right there with them. The king sent a messenger ahead, but before he arrived, Elisha said to the elders, Don't you see how this murderer is sending someone to cut off my head? Look, when the messenger comes, shut the door and hold it shut against him. Is not the sound of his master's footsteps behind him? While he was still talking to them, the messenger came down to him. And the king said, so the king is coming behind the messenger, This disaster is from the Lord. Why should I wait for the Lord any longer? Elisha said, Hear the word of the Lord. This is what the Lord says. All these lords are capital L-O-R-D, Lord. So this is the actual name of God being used here. About this time tomorrow, a seah of flour will sell for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel at the gate of Samaria. So basically, this situation of complete lack of anything is going to turn into an abundance of resources in one day. The officer on whose arm the king was leaning, so presumably the guy who was there to behead Elisha, said to the man of God, Look, even if the Lord should open the floodgates of the heavens, could this happen? You will see it with your own eyes, answered Elisha, but you will not eat any of it. Now, there were 4 men with leprosy at the entrance of the city gate. Again, that's just a random skin disease. We don't know what kind of skin disease that was. 4 unclean men. They had to be outside the city because they were unclean. Maybe it was Gehazi and his buddies. I don't know. Doesn't say that. But at any rate, 4 unclean men with some kind of skin disease were out at the entrance of the city gate. They said to each other, Why stay here until we die? If we say we'll go into the city, the famine is there, and we will die. And if we stay here, they probably wouldn't need to lie there because they're unclean. And if we stay here, we will die. So let's go over to the camp of the Arameans and surrender. If they spare us, we live. If they kill us, then we die. So they're going to die no matter what. The best thing they have to do is go to the Arameans, and maybe the Arameans will capture them and put them to work doing something. Who knows? Maybe they'll spare them and let them live. That's the only way they have. That's the only chance they have to continue living and not die here. At dusk, they got up and went to the camp of the Arameans. When they reached the edge of the camp, not a man was there. For the Lord had caused the Arameans to hear the sound of chariots and horses and a great army. So they said to one another, Look, the king of Israel has hired the Hittite and Egyptian kings to attack us. So they got up and fled in the dusk and abandoned their tents and their horses and donkeys. That happened sometimes. You know, that was part of the international dealings back then. If you were under assault from an enemy king, one of your ways to deal with that problem was to go hire some other king to come fight for you. And then if that king did it, and he won, and he chased the enemies away from you, you were now basically his servant. So he had a reason to do that. If you had a powerful king, if you appealed to a powerful king saying, come help me, and he did it, he had a reason to do it if he felt he could win the fight, because now he has you as a vassal. That was just part of the way they dealt with each other back in those days. So this is a completely believable account for these people. This makes total sense to them. So they got up and fled in the dusk and abandoned their tents and their horses and donkeys. They left the camp as it was and ran for their lives. The men who had, so that happened already. That had already happened. So when the men with leprosy get there, that's already happened. The men who had leprosy reached the edge of the camp and entered one of the tents. They ate and drank, and carried away silver, gold, and clothes, and went off and hid them. They returned and entered another tent and took some things from it and hid them also. Then they said to each other, "What we're doing is not right. This is a day of good news, and we are keeping it to ourselves. If we wait until daylight, punishment will overtake us." In daylight, in the light of the day, it'll be obvious to the watchmen on the walls of the city that the camp is empty. So if these 4 men are caught looting the camp without having informed the king about it, they're going to be put to death. They can do it in the cover of night when no one from the city can see what's going on, but they're going to be found out. So they might as well get the reward for telling the king about it instead of being punished for keeping it from him. If we wait until daylight, punishment will overtake us. Let us go at once and report this to the royal palace. So they went and called out to the city gatekeepers and told them, "We went into the Aramean camp, and not a man was there, not a sound of anyone, only tethered horses and donkeys, and the tents left just as they were." The gatekeepers shouted the news, and it was reported within the palace. The king got up in the night and said to his officers, "I will tell you what the Arameans are doing to us. They know we are starving, so they have left the camp to hide in the countryside, thinking, they will surely come out, and then we will take them alive and get into the city." So he thinks this is a trap. This is an ambush. These Arameans have worked out a clever way to ensure the Samarians' destruction. One of his officers answered, "Have some men take 5 of the horses that are left in the city. Their plight will be like that of all the Israelites left here. Yes, they will only be like all the Israelites who are doomed. Let us send them to find out what happens." So these 5 guys who are going to be going out to check if this is a trap, they're going to die. But if they stay here in the city, they're going to die. So they're doomed no matter. The only way they're going to survive is if they go out and check what happened, and it's true. There is nobody in the enemy camp. So they might as well. So let us send them to find out what happened. So they selected 2 chariots with their horses, and the king sent them after the Aramean army. He commanded the drivers, "Go out and find what has happened." They followed them as far as the Jordan, and they found the whole road strewn with the clothing and equipment the Arameans had thrown away in their headlong flight. So the messengers returned and reported to the king. Then the people went out and plundered the camp of the Arameans. So a seah of flour sold for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley sold for a shekel, as the Lord had said. Now the king had put the officer on whose arm he leaned in charge of the gate, the same guy apparently who was going to go behead Elisha earlier. And the people trampled him in the gateway, and he died, just as the man of God had foretold when the king came down to his house. It happened as the man of God had said to the king, "About this time tomorrow, a seah of flour will sell for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel at the gate of Samaria." The officer had said to the man of God, "Look, even if this Lord should open the floodgates of the heavens, could this happen?" The man of God had replied, "You will see it with your own eyes, but you will not eat any of it." And this is exactly what happened to him. For the people trampled him in the gateway, and he died. That point was emphasized very clearly, wasn't it? They spelled that out twice to make sure that we got the message.